Hi, I'm Dan, and welcome back to Talking Money 2. This is a series where I want to have more one-on-one conversations with other collectors, YouTubers, or both, just to talk. I think it's important to explore the different angles of collecting paper currency, and one of those is today. In 2021, I started my own World Banknote collection. It's not huge or anything, but it certainly has grown, especially with my interest in Canadian and Mexican banknotes. Which leads us to today's guest on a whole different, higher level, talking about other people's money. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Money Talks number 2. It's a special episode for me. I've been watching this gentleman for a while, stalking. This is one of the channels that I literally have gone back and binge watched every single video that he has. And it is fascinating. And our guest today is Ben from Numismatic Notes with Benjamin. And he's got a great channel that features World Bank. And Ben, welcome.
It's good to be here.
Great to have you here. So you've been doing World Banknotes. You're like the first expert I've ever met in World Banknotes. You got quite the pedigree.
Well, you're kind to say all that. Thank you.
Well, it's true. I mean, me and Ben have been talking 3-4 conversations back and forth, and I'm impressed because a lot of times, us American currency folks have no clue or don't want to have a clue about what's going on. And that's okay. Everybody collects their own deal, and that's the fun of it. But my reason to have Benjamin on today is because just World Banknotes is starting to really fascinate me. And it's a pretty big ocean, big world. But it doesn't have to be. It's an affordable world. So, Ben, tell me what you've been doing. How you're very involved in collecting within the hobby. What are you doing?
So right now in the hobby, I spend a lot of time acquiring, for my own collection, but then I use my acquisitions to make theme videos and deep dive videos on banknotes from around the world. And I do that because I've noticed over the years that there seems to be a lot of expertise drying up in the field, especially when you view the aged experts here in the United States. And that's perhaps one reason I got into banknotes in the first place, that are world in nature, because there was always somebody who knew about the Morgan dollar, and there was always somebody who knows all about the red coppers. And, there's people that know things about rag picking and U.S. currency, but where I'm from, there just wasn't a whole lot of people in the world. And I thought, hey, that's a place I could maybe dip my toe in.
Well, I hear the accent. I know you're a proud Oklahoman. What was it like growing up, getting interested in World Banknotes in Oklahoma?
So it was a lot like the rain. There wasn't a lot of it. So, many times I would get a note, and I had no discrimination as far as the condition of a note or even what it was. If it was different, it was interesting, and better for me if it cost less than $1, because that was about the limit of my my fundage at the time.
Well, how old were you when you started?
So, like a lot of people, I started with coins, and I was probably 8 or 9 when my father gave me my first Whitman folders. But since I never threw away anything, I kept those folders in my desk for many moves from one place to another. And we moved to Oklahoma City, didn't have a TV, couldn't afford cable. And I was like, what do I have here? Got a Coin World newspaper and just started educating myself.
Wow. I mean, that's initiative. You are heavily involved in multiple aspects of the collecting hobby, let's say industry, for lack of a better word. What organizations have you been involved with? Are you member of?
I'm a member of my local coin club, and I would encourage anybody to be a member of their local numismatic organization. In my case, it's the Oklahoma City Coin Club. And like Chicago, we've been around for more than 70 years at this point. And we'll be hosting the American Numismatic Association show next August. So yay!
That's huge, and good for you. Good for Oklahoma City. Good for Oklahoma.
Right.
That's
We're very excited.
awesome. That
And then,
is
of course, you go up a level, and I'm a member of our state organization as well. And then the national organization, which here in the U.S. is there's several, but the one I'm a member of is the American Numismatic Association. Plus, it's here in the United States. They have a museum, and I was able to travel out there and attend summer seminars, which are
mm,
opportunities to elbow rub with other hobby experts and people in the hobby. I mean, it's a great place to make friends, and I've made some friends as a teenager that I still count as my friends now.
wow. I mean, it's interesting just because, yeah, I took the trip to the A&A Museum, and being a paper guy, I might have been disappointed, but I understand. I do. And that's the thing about World Banknotes, really any segment. If we're talking, numismatics, I'd argue 90% of everybody involved, and I hate that term. It's such a stupid term. I think it puts people off. I'm sorry I'm going down that road, but we need to make it more friendly so you don't sound like a pedophile. I mean, it's just at least we're not philatelist, because that really does sound like
Right.
um anyways, I digress and share my opinion. But what the each slice of the pie, you talk about your US collector, and you could break it down into, I'm a fancy note, I like errors, I like nationals, I like whatever. And it keeps on getting thinner and thinner. And as banknote collectors, we're already, I'd argue, 10%, maybe 5 at the tops. And I appreciate what ANA does and other organizations, but they don't do a lot, and that's okay. I get it. I get that the coins drive the business. And someone told me once, if it wasn't for the Morgan dollar, none of us would be talking, no matter what we collect, right? The Morgan dollar drives the collecting industry. But what happened for me was, I got to blame another YouTuber, Stu Plubeck, because literally how I got hooked on World Banknotes, he was showing something, and he pulls out the issue 1975 from the Scenes of Canada $50, banknote. And I'm just like, I literally was on eBay before I hit the like button on his video, and had been purchasing it, and I didn't give a crap how much I overpaid for it. I'm like, I want it. I want it. I want it. And it's just a beautiful note. We're going to talk about that later. But that was the hook. And then my dad passed away, and I needed to fill kind of a hole when my dad passed in COVID. And so I started a World Banknote collection for myself. And for basically, I don't think I spent over $1,000, and I was able to acquire a contemporary bill, modern bill, with the equivalent to the US dollar or their lowest common denomination. And it was the funnest thing to do for me, and those things. And then I meet a guy like, Dean from Massabisa Coin, he's half Canadian, poor guy. But he had this influence for me into these old banknotes from Canada, and going back, like kind of like they're obsoletes. And so that's what really tripped me. And then also the next thing I'm knocking out 10 videos, by the way, that nobody watches, just saying, about, Canada versus New Mexico, or versus Mexico versus US. And I was shocked that all 3 countries literally flipped their currency over at the same time, give or take 2 or 3 years. And they'd come out with basically a new series at roughly the same time. So I don't know. That's how I got here. And it's not like I'm going to stop collecting anything else, but it just fascinated me. And then I trip across your channel, folks. And again, Benjamin, he does 2 or 3 different types, 2 videos for types. He'll put out, and I make fun of him, but it's a good fun, is cow videos. He's like, he pulls out 8,000 banknotes that have cows on them, or pigs, or crusty, and it's a theme, and it's really cool because it's quick hitting. You get to see a lot of notes in 8-10 minutes. And then I do like it when you bust down a note. You pick a note and you bust it down and get deeper into it. And that's what I like. I want to know those things. So why did you start your YouTube channel, Ben?
Well, I started it for a few reasons. I am disappointed sometimes in the transmission or the lack of transmission of knowledge from one generation to the next. And as somebody with a background in education, I really value the experiences of more seasoned collectors who have gone before, and I'm not seeing that transfer like I got to experience as a child. So I realized that if I didn't step up to do something, that somebody else might not. And so at least I remembered what I was told. And then whenever it comes to computers, I just prefer not having a computer. But I just realized that if I needed to persuade people to my contention that knowledge should be transmitted, I needed to learn how to do some things. So
Yeah.
I was
Well,
working at a local school, and they started a club with the kids on creating broadcasts. They tried to make little tiny 5-minute recordings and then have them out there for the kids in the school to see. And I thought, if these little fifth graders can do it, I can do it. And so I looked around and I bought a little microphone and a tripod. And I just thought, I'll try to do this. And over Christmas break, I sat down and I did my first video. And I can't believe how long it took to make this like a 5-minute video. And
it's
I wrote a script out, and I that's the only one I ever wrote a script for, because I was like, I'm not doing this again.
that.
But
Thanks, Ben. That's what I do every time. But
but I wrote a script, and I just decided that recording it would be a lot like giving a speech. And I used to go to Toastmasters with my father. So I've just decided that if I make a mistake, I go, oops, and I move on with it. Sometimes if it's a bad one, I'll reshoot a video, but usually what you see is what you get. And it's the first 10 minutes of me sitting down and shooting a video. And it seems to be popular enough that I've been inspired to keep going, but I realize that I have room for improvement. So,
well, Ben, let me comment. I mean, one of the greatest things about watching Ben, his personality, maybe it's sad, I don't know, comes through. You really get you do get Ben flavor. And you're not the average, Santa Claus looking guy from Oklahoma. But it really is genuine. And that's what got me, Ben, was that I'm like, this guy's the real deal. He cares. He cares about what he does. He's got a passion for what he does. It is something more than the YouTube. And that's why I asked the question, why are you doing YouTube? Let me ask a follow-up. What's your favorite thing about doing YouTube, having a YouTube channel?
my favorite thing about having a YouTube channel is my interactions I get with people. I guess it's fair to say, a fan. I have a fan in Canada who told me in a post that he started a folder of banknotes that he started collecting since he watched my videos, and I was a little taken aback and honored the by that comment. And so it makes me not want to waste my time or come across in a half-assed way. Can
Well,
I say that?
I bet I've gotten outside of my collection at least 10 notes because you've shown them.
Mm.
One of my son-in-laws, you did the serial number video with the Jack Nicholas Scotland note. And my future son-in-law, if you're watching, which you're not, could you marry my daughter? Could you please propose? You're living with her. Let's be honest. Come on. And you stole her to Florida. You took her away. End of closed circuit. But it was the perfect gift for him. So I went out and got two of them and I framed it and I got the story behind it and gave it to him. And, it was just really cool because what do you get he's a PGA pro golfer.
I enjoy making those connections and helping people make the connections. And so, I've learned that with themes, I might even attract interest from people out there in YouTube land who don't necessarily collect banknotes, but they might collect rhinoceros, for example. And
It's about the note. It's about what's it, where's it from? Who's it about? That to me is the story. And that's why I connected with your channel so much, Ben, because you brought that to life in astonishingly many, many ways. Human, animal, biological. The dots you connect are really cool. And I appreciate it. So thank you for doing your channel. I really do. All right. So we talked a bit, folks. We want to be, having fun and moving along because, it's World Banknotes. So I thought it would be a good idea to say, between me and Ben, if we could spotlight one banknote that out of this conversation, that if you were to see one banknote, that you'd go get it, and that's the only banknote that you'd ever buy for the rest of your life. I hope that's not true. You want to go first? You want me to?
I'm okay with telling you what my view is. Growing up here in Oklahoma, and especially the Panhandle, there's like maybe 10 inches or less of rain a year where I grew up, and the only place there would be a tree would be historically where there may have been a river. There certainly weren't ponds or natural lakes out where I grew up in. So one of the notes that always had meaning for me, just because it was unbelievable in what it had on it, was a Canadian dollar bill that had a whole lot of logs floating in the water.
Oh, so you as a
And
kid seeing that were like, that's wow.
right. And so, like a little kid out in the Panhandle who likes aquariums, I mean, it's just fascinating and mesmerizing to see a note that looks so different from the views that you would see outside your front door.
We're in the same series, Ben, what I'm throwing
Oh,
out.
I love all of Canada's notes, and especially the ones since Queen Elizabeth came out, because those nature scenes, every one of them was fantastic, and the ones that had water or an aspect of water were truly phenomenal. Although the prairie scene on one of those
Oh,
notes looks a lot like where I grew up, so I
I
was pretty comfortable with that
that's
note.
Western Minnesota. You drive, an hour, southwest of where I'm at. And yeah, that's it. And you see that thunderstorm for hours. So yeah, mine is the 1975 Scenes of Canada $50. That Stu Pluback, Stu, you're still cursing people today. But it's such a fantastic note. The bold red, I mean, it's just and it, the Mounties on the back doing it's part of the musical ride, which is a whole show that the Mounties would go around doing. The dome. That's what that is capturing still. To zoom in, and I'm going to show you guys pictures of how incredible the artwork, and that's another thing I get into big time, Ben. The artistry and just they combined intaglio print with lithography on that whole scenes of can. It's just unbelievable.
The thing I like about your note too is the vivid coloring. I mean, at a certain point, my experience with notes was that they were just all a single color, and usually it was a light or a washed out color in my mind.
Yeah.
This note is definitely makes me think about comic books from the 60s and 70s.
The architecture. Talk to me about architecture on World Bank notes, Ben.
So there's the man-formed architecture, or the one that's directly as a result from man's design and creation, but then nature can have an architecture as well. So I enjoy the architecture of mountains on a banknote, but then conversely, I enjoy the little buildings and the roads and things that can just hang off of a mountain as well. Lots of temples, lots of churches, lots of mosques, if you go around the world, appear on banknotes. And in some ways, that makes a banknote a much more fulfilling hobby than collecting a postcard. And in many ways, it's just like a postcard too. And that's one reason I've become a banknote collector.
Okay, so there is one banknote that I forgot. This one, it isn't often that I laugh out loud, watching somebody's YouTube channel. And I might pull the clip and pause the video because I'm pretty sure you did an East German note that was possibly the ugliest note and poorest I've ever seen. And it just, I can't remember the comment that you made. Maybe it was something else and I'm thinking of it wrong, but I literally laughed out loud because of your comment. And it's like, it wasn't mean. It is what it is.
Well,
So,
sadly, East German had some skill. Doping up for the Olympics is something they did very well, but
but I think it was the family
but
and
the architecture on the banknote
yeah.
was definitely a lot better than the architecture of the family's faces, and I was just like, "Ugh," and I think I made a comment about how I hoped that they were all okay, because they certainly were not a beautiful family at all,
No,
the way
no,
they
the
were engraved, and it
pretty
was
much the ugly stick. They
it was
they fell
sad,
in everyone.
I mean, it was chasing them around and hitting them hard.
And when you're looking at two guys, folks, that we're not pretty men, let's be honest. I mean, it's like we do the best. He's got hair everywhere. I'm losing it everywhere. Me and Ben have talked offline. Ben is much more understandable about the printing process and how tough it is. And I'm just going to go here right now, Ben. How do we not do something for the 250th anniversary? I'll take a Where's George stamp and stamp something. And they can't do that. They can't do something that simple. It drives me insane. Yet we're getting new coins,
Monthly.
that nobody uses, nobody looks at.
It gives me hope for the future because once they actually do decide to do something like you're envisioning, I think the dam is going to break and it's going to be hard to stay on top of everything they produce, especially when they realize, hey, it costs like 5 cents, 10 cents, 20 cents to print this note, and I can sell it for $10
At
and
the
nobody's going to
yeah,
spend it again. And I'm going to have to keep making new ones.
but we're not done. But we're going to start wrapping up, because I want to leave you all with something. And it's just, you talk about World Banknotes. I get kind of, have a little passion for them because they are so interesting. Ben, if I was out there and listening to us blabber on, where would you recommend saying it's so big, it can be so big, but it doesn't have to be overwhelming. Something can be big and doesn't have to be overwhelming. I know, trust me. Where would you send people for first step?
So over your shoulder, I think, let me point that
Yes.
way. I see a standard catalog of banknotes, and that's where I first went to look up notes. And it was a matter of just looking up a country, and then you have everything all in one place, and you didn't have to look at anything else in the catalog. In fact, if you contributed to it like I did, they'd send you a couple, and you could actually rip it up and carry around just the countries you were interested in.
See, this
That's a
is what Ben blew off, folks. He blew off that he's done work like this. And it's like, and this is what I wanted him to do. So y'all didn't think I was talking to some idiot from Oklahoma. He's from Oklahoma, but he's not an idiot. All right. He has done so much for the hobby. So come on. Yeah, I get the World Paper Money book, and it might be conveniently staged for today's conversation because
right. But I mean,
um
I have them all. So I have like a wall of every one of those books that have come out over the years. And I just enjoyed my part in contributing to them, adding to the knowledge. And, I would take my catalog to shows with me. And whenever I found something or tripped over something in a book, I'd write it in there, like who designed this note. And, I discovered with banknotes, you could have numerous people that are behind the design of a
oh
note,
yeah.
unlike a coin. You might have a designer, but then you would have an engraver. The best place in my experience to go, I mean, there's all those organizations we talked about earlier, of course, and there's experts if you can locate them. But there is a online clearinghouse where people crowdsource and put their knowledge all together in one place, and it's a dream come true for me as a numismatist, and it might be for you as well. And I'm referring to the website numista.com. Numista.com has more than 250,000 registered users. And it's a free website where you can literally go in and look up any banknote, any coin, any exonymic item. There are some weaknesses because it is crowdsourced, and some of our experts have not tripped over Numista yet to contribute their expertise. But it is a very easy website for you to add your knowledge to and to participate in as a collector or as a contributor, and it's one of my favorite places to go online.
And it's, by the way, so when I researched each country and what's on it, where did I start? I tripped across it by accident and I dove in there. And not every, note has it, but mostly they'll say, hey, here's a very brief vignette description. Here's a couple plants. Here's the fish or something. And then, it's a start. And to see everything, and by the way, just stay away from any country that's got not gelds. I'm just telling you, because you open up one of those pop-up menus and it's going to blow up your computer because
It's like a tribble, isn't it?
it's just Star Trek reference.
Yep. Oops.
Nope. Star Trek reference. Damn. I'm a Trekkie. The original baby. Uh, so I it's a really good place to go look and see and check out Canada. Go talk in Canada today. Head over to Numista and go find Canada and look at the bills that they've put because they do it in chronological orders, how they drop in series or issues, and you can see what the next one was, what the next was, and it's yeah, it's a little clunky here and there, but with the amount of, it's like Wikipedia clunky. There's just so much information. I don't know how you can make it that clean.
I think the algorithm has it by date and then denomination. So I mean, that's how, it'll show up usually, but there must be about 20 or 30 points of data available, but most of the time whenever it's a new listing, there might be only 4 or 5 things on there, but then there is a offended collector out there like, how can you not say this about my beautiful banknote? And then they will update it, and then it gets a little bit better each time. And I know I got argued with a lot. I was and still am a master ref for the banknote section of Numista, which is a glorified catch-all role for every country that does not have a referee. Every country on Numista has somebody who's responsible for maintaining it, organizing it, keeping it cleaned, and somewhat unified. And then we have an overall standard that we try to follow. 250,000 collectors around the world are seeing the updates that you make on a listing. And for my money and what it's worth, it can be more inspiring to see people arguing over a page on Numista because they're like, well, I can do a better picture. And I'm like, well, do it.
Do it.
And
Do
then,
it.
they'll have picture wars. And then at the end of it, you will have one winner, but then you will have 2 people that make amazing pictures and then go out and take photographs that are needed for other pages, or they'll develop ways to flesh out the descriptions, for example. And
Well, and that's one of the things. I'm a visual person, and I would guesstimate 70% of the pictures are excellent or better.
oh
I
yeah,
mean, yeah,
yeah.
there's some tough ones, and I get it, but it's amazing how much has been uploaded. And you can view it, you can see it, and you're like, well, what's the next $5 bill they did? Okay, keep going.
And I
That,
get cussed sometimes because they're like, that is a bad image. And I'm like, yes, but what you don't realize is that inside of a week, I'm going to get 10 more
well,
uploads and I get to choose the best one to
yeah,
replace
and
that
you've been
image.
doing it. So
And
and
then you can,
that's a volunteer position, Ben, correct?
right. Yeah. It's completely
Thank you.
voluntary
Thank
and
you.
love it.
Thank you for making my enjoyment of the hobby easier, because you did. And that whole site, and again, it can be overwhelming, but here's the greatest thing on earth about Numista. The search query actually works. It
It
does
does.
produce accurate results. And, I hate it when I go to websites and I'm like, well, I'll just hit the search, and, it leads to just no man's land. This actually gives you results that you're kind of trying to find.
And they roll out new things all the time. Like I still remember when they rolled out tags, which I thought, oh, well, that means I don't really need to do my theme banknotes so much on YouTube anymore. But what has happened
No,
is
you do.
sometimes
You do.
it helps me put together a new theme pretty easily. So I appreciate the little things that they keep rolling out. They've added, I think, French and English were the 2 main languages of Numista, but now there's German, Italian, Portuguese. I think they're doing Chinese and Japanese, and their goal is to be a worldwide resource. And I think they do it better than just about anybody out there with the price point of 0. I think you can pay a little bit more if you want your pictures of your banknote, up
Well,
there. But
and that's just it. You can upload your catalog. By the way, Ben has a unbelievable World Banknote collection, but equal on par with that, like I care because it's coins. But his coin collection is shocking as far as the volume. And that's another day, another topic. We got
But
to
you
wrap.
make a good point, and the only reason I can call it a collection, and even you can call it a collection, is because I've made the effort to organize it,
Yeah.
research it, and list it. And so you can instantly go from having an accumulation of daddy's crap to a collection in its own right. And Numista provides a neat dashboard that helps you with the visual pleasure of sharing your collection without necessarily having to share your collection.
All right, Ben, I am so glad that you took the time to reach out, or however, I can't even remember. I'm just so glad, because it's my pleasure to have you on. I would love to have you back and start talking about getting into a little bit deeper things here and there to encourage folks to think about. It's just think about it. Your channel, Numismatics Notes with Benjamin. Keep on trucking, do what you do. Don't go changing. I highly encourage you. I've enjoyed it. And thank you for doing it. I mean, it's sincere thanks for doing it. You've made my life a little bit better, and I want to thank you for that. So
Well,
thanks.
it's a pleasure, and it's kind of like a video diary at this point because I'm close to 200 videos for
Yeah.
my 4 or 5 years worth of effort, in the channel. But I definitely love the bridges that I've been able to construct with the page, not only from people to people, but from place to place. And my world is a little bit enriched by numismatics, and I like to share what I know with others. So
Well,
that might apply to you.
it does, and I thank you for that. Sincere thanks. Folks, that's it for Money Talks or Talking Money. I can't even remember what I call it. Whatever, doesn't matter. Thank you, Ben. It's been my pleasure, and we will talk to you the next time around.
I'm Benjamin. Have a jewel of a day.